So often the hardest part of the disease is to deal with the unpredictability of the symptoms. So even when you're getting the best treatment possible, people with arthritis can experience flare-ups. These flare-ups can happen just if someone gets a simple virus or illness, and then their symptoms will increase. Arthritis affects one of the hundreds of joints in the body, and sometimes more than one joint. So each person with arthritis or chronic joint pain may struggle with different activities. Some of these activities include working at a computer, the pace or the scheduling of work, or being in one position for a long period of time. The fatigue with arthritis is not the same fatigue that you would get if you stay up late at night or if you're woken up during the evening, but it's a chronic and exhausting fatigue that will decrease your ability to do mental and physical work. The Arthritis Society offers an online program on managing this type of fatigue. Arthritis is a medical condition, so it's important to get an early diagnosis to improve and maintain joint function. There are a few things that you can do to help a person with arthritis or chronic joint pain function well at work. These things include simple techniques to protect the joints in the workplace, adaptations and accommodations to keep people working, and a supportive work culture. We must take responsibility and action to protect ourselves, to protect our joints, especially if they're already damaged. The following steps apply not only to those people with arthritis or joint damage, but they can be useful to all employees who need encouragement to have a healthy, productive life-work balance. Some of these adjustments take a little bit of creativity, and others only have a modest cost. So we're going to go through 5 steps, and they'll be covered in the following slides. Everybody would benefit from a thought-out work environment, as it impacts your overall comfort and your productivity in the workplace. Very simple modifications to your workstation can have a huge impact on your joints. As you can see in this slide, it's really important to organize your workstation into 3 zones, that you keep the items that you use the most regularly very close to you so that you don't have to continuously reach. It's also important that the items that you use on a regular basis are directly in front of you so that you don't have to twist and turn. If possible, if you're talking on the phone a lot, it's important to use a headset. And this is so that you don't use a phone and cradle it between your neck and your shoulder. If you consistently need to reach something, for example a phone, this is a really good time so that you can change position, stand up, move around while you take the call. At least this way it helps you change your posture and ultimately reduce the fatigue and tiredness that you have in your muscles. It'll help improve your circulation. Another trick that I use on a regular basis, and if it's possible you should do it too, once a week change the items at your desk from one side to the other, and that will help you use both arms and not have the same fatigue that you would normally have by always reaching for something in one direction. So if you're having issues, you should consider modifications to your work environment, such as using a split keyboard, a rollerball mouse, or something like a chair mat so that your chair can slide back and forth easily. Things like enlarged cushions for pens help with the grip size, or gel ink pens actually flow easier. Simple things also just like insulation or foam tubing will help increase the grip size of tools so that you don't have to grip as hard and it makes them easier to grip. Slides 2 and 3 will help you deal with your workflow. So the step 2 is planning ahead. So it's very, very important to plan your priorities in life, in work, home, and leisure. You need to schedule your activities throughout your week. So most people have a general idea of when they're at their best, when they're at their worst. So it's important to have a good balance of activity and rest, heavy and light tasks. So if you have an intense or an important event, a gala for the Arthritis Society, for example, it's important to do something a little slower paced right before so that you have the energy to do that. Most of us know when our best and our worst times are. So perform the important duties that you have at a time that works best for you. If you're having trouble balancing those demands of work and life, it's probably time to speak to your manager or your HR director about accommodation. Step 3 is about pacing yourself at work. It's important to change positions at work so it changes the stresses in your joints. For example, you should switch between standing and sitting and walking. Some people need to use a timer, especially when we get into our tasks at work. You might get busy and forget to move. So using a timer is a good way of knowing, hey, it's been 30 minutes that I've been sitting, it's time to get up. Working at a moderate or reasonable pace is much more important than trying to get everything done all at once. So you need to determine what your realistic tolerance is to working. So for example, sometimes when you were 20 years old, your reasonable tolerance was one thing. And maybe now, or maybe today you're more tired, your tolerance is a little bit different. So it's important to keep in mind what your body's able to do and what your energy level is for that day. Also for your age and your fitness level. It's important to take regular breaks. Even if it's for a few minutes, it's important to get up and move. You may need to negotiate some of these breaks with your employer, or a note from your physician may be required if you need such breaks. Step 4 deals with joint protection. This applies to no matter what job you have and no matter whether or not you have arthritis. Let's look more in detail, starting with your posture. So, in neutral posture, you reduce the stress on your discs and you reduce the stress on the nerves coming out. When you have a good posture, the holes for your nerves are at a nice distance and the pressure on your discs is equal. When you're in a good posture, the ligaments and the muscles of your body are there to support your spine. And this is how your body was designed to move. So it's important that you have good posture during the day, but it's not necessary to have excellent posture all day long. That's not realistic, even for a physiotherapist. So it's okay to slouch, it's okay to move, it's okay to rotate, but the problem is most people stay slouched all day long. And that places unnecessary stress on the ligaments and tendons and adds additional strain on the spine and on the upper extremities. So let's try a simple technique for posture. Let's practice good posture together. So let's stand tall with your feet hip width apart. Unlock your knees. Pull yourself up like you have an S-hook pulling you up from the top of your head. Tuck your chin in very, very gently, and then pull your shoulders back so that you're squeezing, almost like you're squeezing an orange between your shoulder blades. Bring your belly button in and squeeze your buttocks just very gently. Feel like your spine and your abdomen are coming together. Take a deep breath in, hold, and breathe out. Relax. Let's try that again. So, standing with your feet hip width apart, with your knees slightly relaxed, pull yourself up like you have an S-hook at the top of your head, pulling yourself upwards. Tuck your chin in very gently and pull your shoulders back as if you have an orange between your shoulder blades. Bringing your abdomen towards your back, squeeze your buttocks very gently. Take a deep breath in, breathe out, and relax. How did that exercise make you feel? For me personally, that makes me feel really nice, and it makes my back feel relaxed. When you're looking at your fundamental ergonomic postures, it's important to think about some major steps. So first off, to maintain neutral postures is really important for the reasons we discussed earlier. It's also important to keep your work tasks and your load close to your body. Why is that important? When your arms are completely outstretched, items end up being about 10 times heavier than if you have them closer towards you. Static postures, so say for example sitting for a long period of time or standing for a long period of time, create fatigue in your muscles and joints and also decrease circulation. Moving positions every 30 to 60 minutes by alternating your postures, stretching or rocking in your chair is very, very important to increase that circulation. Minimizing your contact stress. What does that mean? So it means that when you're at your desk, make sure that the edge of your desk is not resting on your wrists, because you will decrease the circulation in your wrist and actually lead to more problems long term. It creates inflammation, decreased circulation, over time causing pain. Adequate lighting is important so that you don't increase the strain on your eyes, that you're not tended to pull yourself into a forward head posture. What's also important is to make sure that you have adequate positioning of your desk so that sunshine is not coming in and hitting on your screen, creating glare. Make sure to adjust your blinds when necessary in your office. Proper seating is extremely important. So if your chair is adjustable, it's really important to learn how to adjust your chair. Sitting in a comfortable chair that supports your spine will allow you to maintain those neutral postures that we were talking about. So ideally, a chair is adjustable for height and proper positioning with your workstation. There should always be about 2 to 3 fingers of space from the edge of your chair to the back of your knees. The height of your chair should be altered so that your shoulders and your elbows are relaxed when you're sitting at your desk. If your chair is not adjustable, you should see if you can change chairs with one of your colleagues, because a chair is not one size fits all. It really depends on your height and on your leg length. If your chair is not adjustable, you should try these steps. Use a footrest, especially if there's any pressure underneath your thighs. And a footrest should be angled a little bit so that your knees are a little bit higher than your hips. Make sure that it's not too high. Use a lower back or lumbar support to support your spine so that you're not tending to slouch forward. And as I said earlier, if those things are not available, or even if your chair is adjustable but it doesn't seem to be working for you, see if you can switch it out with someone that you work with. A comfortable workstation doesn't ensure that you're going to have good posture, but it will promote good posture. It'll promote neutral postures where your back and your neck are relaxed and supported, that your elbows are close to your body and bent at a 90-degree angle, and that your wrists and hands are straight, not bent forward or downwards. Your keyboard should be placed on either your desk or on a tray. And as I said earlier, you really need to avoid resting your wrists on the corner of the desks. When you're adjusting the height of your monitor, the taskbar, the toolbar, should be at your eye level. If you wear progressive glasses, though, that may need to be adjusted for your eyesight. Laptops are really convenient. They're portable work environments. The problem with them is that it's impossible to adjust the height properly if you're only using a laptop. It can force users into awkward postures, especially if they're being used for a long period of time. So in order to minimize these risks, it's important that you follow a few recommendations. First of all, frequency. So taking those breaks that we talked about earlier is even more important when using a laptop. Take a 1 to 2 minute break every 30 minutes, or make sure to alternate tasks. So the beauty about a laptop, make sure you can stand up, you can actually move it. Move it up onto a counter, move it downwards. As you can see in the second portion of this slide, you need to avoid that turtle posture, so that hunchback and forward head posture. The problem with laptops is it brings you into this posture a little more naturally. Avoid using a laptop on your lap for extended periods of time. This has to do with the way the laptop and the heat circulates. If you keep the laptop on your lap, it tends to heat up. So make sure that you use a laptop rest to protect your lap from the heat of the laptop. If you're using the laptop for longer than an hour, if possible, or when possible, use an external monitor or an external keyboard or mouse. This will allow you to adjust the height of the monitor, which is really important. Make sure that you don't lie down and that you're using either a seating or standing position when you're on a laptop. Lying down with a laptop, unfortunately, promotes extremely awkward postures, so either laying on your side or laying on your stomach, which is not beneficial for your body. To avoid glare, as we said earlier, it's important to be perpendicular to windows. So, if you don't have the option of an external monitor or an external keyboard and mouse, the best option really depends on the tasks that you're doing with that laptop. So let's say you're doing a reading task. It's actually more important to have your monitor higher, so adjust that height. If you're doing typing tasks, it's important to have your monitor lower. Your neck muscles are more able to support the strain because they're larger than, for example, your wrists being high up. So adjust your height of your laptop depending on the task that you're doing at that time. Mobile use. So we're seeing more and more over the last few years that people are using mobile devices, which is fantastic because they're an excellent tool. However, there is an increased risk of neck and shoulder injuries with mobile and tablet use. These risks increase because of the poor posture when using devices. So keep in mind that our head, when in neutral position on our spine, weighs anywhere between 10 and 12 pounds. I often say sometimes people's heads weigh a little more, especially if they have a lot in there, but it gets even worse when you're using that mobile device. So as your head tilts forward, when you get down here, which is where most people are when they're looking or they're texting, that pressure can increase to 60 pounds on your spine. On top of that, when you're writing an email or texting, you can have repetitive strain problems with your thumbs. So some tips and tricks or recommendations. So the mobile recommendations is that on mobile devices, you're not using them for any more than 15 minutes at a time. Can you say that you do that for yourself? Because I know for me, sometimes if you get into an app or a game, that time can increase. So it's important to keep that in mind. Use neutral wrist postures and alternate your hands when using a mobile device. So it's actually important not to use your thumbs, but to use your finger. Holding your mobile device in portrait position will actually also decrease the strain. So make sure that you're not using it in a landscape position. When at all possible, try and use a hands-free device. So again, instead of holding your phone up to your head, if you have a Bluetooth or that you can use, that would help decrease the strain on your neck. For tablets, because they're a little bit larger, most people have stands. So when at all possible, use a stand for your tablet, or sometimes you can even prop it up with a pillow or a backpack to keep the screen closer to your eye level. The recommendation for tablet is similar to a mobile device. It is better to keep it in portrait position instead of landscape. And for a tablet, you should be trying to limit your use to about 30 minutes at a time. So remember, when you're working with a laptop in a car, that you need to keep it in front of your body and no more than a forearm reach. Elevate your laptop on a riser or on a backpack to lift it off your lap and bring it closer to your eye height. Also very important, avoid using your laptop when driving, of course. I would hope that that's common sense. Remember to maintain your neutral postures. Assisted devices may be useful, so including things like a laptop mount, laptop lights, glare filters because you have light coming in from every direction from your car, and laptop supports. Lifting and moving is very important, again, not for just people with arthritis, but for everybody to make sure that you don't have joint damage. So these tips will apply for anyone who moves or lifts objects. It's particularly important if you already have joint damage or weaknesses that you know about. So it's important that when you're moving heavy objects, either as a part of your job or in your home, that you're using a dolly or a roller to help move objects to make it easier for your arms and legs. If you're traveling, make sure that you're using a rolling suitcase. Make sure to pack light, particularly for the objects that you would need to maybe put in an overhead bin. When you are traveling, because typically when we're traveling, we're sitting for a long period of time, make sure that before you go and lift the object that you do a little bit of stretching before to just improve your circulation. Proper moving and lifting techniques is absolutely important for everyone. So here's a few things to do, whether or not you have joint pain. First, warm up prior to starting your lifting techniques. It's also important to test your load. So injuries happen when you think the load is either lighter or heavier than it actually is. Plan your path. Make sure that your path is completely clear for the object that you're going to move. The last thing you want to do is to trip on something on your way to moving an object. Make sure that you have a wide balanced stance so that your feet are shoulder width apart and that your feet are staggered. When you start your lift, make sure that you use your bigger, stronger muscles, so your legs and your hips, to do the lifting, not your arms. When possible, roll or push the object, especially if it's heavy. Make sure that you have a firm grip, but keep your fingers relaxed. Be cautious when you're using gloves because they can actually be slippery and you don't want to lose your load. Keep your head up and your shoulders back because that maintains your neutral spine. And if you are lifting with a partner, so my recommendation is anything over 50 pounds should be done with someone else. And again, that depends on your lifting tolerance, but you must communicate. So 1, 2, 3, lift. Make sure that you're on the same page. If you think you need assistance, ask for assistance. Don't put yourself at risk on taking on something that you don't think you can do safely. So make sure you ask a coworker, or if you're at home, ask a family member for assistance. Make sure that, as I said earlier, if you've been resting for a prolonged period, or if you've been sitting for a prolonged period of time, take a quick stretch break before lifting something like a luggage out of the back of your car or from an airplane. It will help improve the circulation to the muscles that are going to do the lift and decrease your risk of injury overall. There's a variety of tools or devices that can help protect your joints when you're doing tasks. But before you make any decisions on what you're going to get, make sure that you ask yourself some certain questions. Does this tool or device make the task easier, make it safer, decrease any strain on my joints? Does it help me save energy? And then, of course, the quality of it. Is it lightweight? Is it well made? Am I going to actually use it? Step 5 deals with asking for help. Should I tell my employer? Many people who have arthritis or chronic joint pain often worry about telling their employer or their coworkers about their condition. This is a very personal choice. A recent study showed that supportive coworkers and a supportive culture at work or a supportive employer actually makes it easier to disclose this information. Disclosing the information makes it easier to manage your condition, such as arthritis at work. It's a personal decision to take to talk to your employer or your coworkers about your arthritis or about your chronic joint pain. But the fact that your employer is sponsoring this event is a pretty good indication that they would be supportive. If you don't have arthritis or a chronic joint condition, you may want to consider, am I a supportive coworker? Remember that everyone has different needs, and it's important to try to be supportive of others. If there was ever a reason not to be physically active, it seems like arthritis would be the reason, right? But in fact, research shows quite the opposite. Properly designed activities not only decrease arthritis pain, but also increase the flexibility and decrease your overall pain, and they increase your overall fitness. Physical activity brings even a more direct effect. Cartilage absolutely depends on joint movement to absorb the nutrients and remove waste. Ligaments and bones become stronger and a lot more resilient with regular exercise. So physical activity and exercise actually help to keep your joints healthier. You need to use the resources available to you. A physiotherapist or an occupational therapist will help ensure that the physical activities that you've chosen to do will engage and address your specific needs and help you design an activity routine that works for you. You can start with some simple exercises that you can do right at your desk. I often recommend the Arthritis Society's Top 10 Exercise Program. They have a poster available. Most of the exercises you can do right at your desk. So I would encourage you to download this free resource from the Joint Matters at Work website portal. So even if you don't have arthritis, maintaining a healthy lifestyle will help you get through the day. So this involves maintaining a healthy diet, a certain fitness level, getting enough sleep. Most people require 8 hours of sleep, and enough physical activity. It's really important because strong and flexible muscles will help protect your joints, and strong bones will help protect you against fractures. There's some great tips on how to become and remain physically active on the Society's Physical Activity Arthritis brochure, which is available at www.arthritis.ca. So protecting your joints at work and in the rest of your everyday life is primarily up to you. You need to take charge of your joints to keep yourself healthy in the workplace and in your day-to-day life. You should surround yourself with the experts you need. So there's a whole healthcare team available to you, some through your employer and some that are just readily available in your community. If you want to learn about proper medications, alternative therapies, the benefits of physiotherapy, or how to use heat or cold to manage your pain, that's all available. But remember, you're the captain of the team, and you can help fight arthritis.